what do you think would be the future of the Iranian nuclear principles and programs? Because the recent intelligence community report on Senate says that Iran is not developing nuclear weapons. The 2003 abandonment of its nuclear programs are still on, and it refers to the Supreme Leader Khomeini's fatwa. But if this continues, what is the future of Iranian nuclear program?
There are a couple of things here. One is that the United States admits that since 2003, as you rightly point out, that Iran is not pursuing nuclear weapons. I would add that before 2003, Iran was never pursuing nuclear weapons. That's just a fact. But in any case, at least there's an agreement that for the last 22 years, Iran has not been pursuing nuclear weapons. So the threats being made against Iran are violations of international law. Not just any attack. An attack would be a clear act of aggression, but threats against Iran are violations of international law. Iran's nuclear program is the country's right. Before the revolution, the nuclear program had been initiated with Western support. But since Iran is now a sovereign and independent country and it's no longer a client regime like the other regimes in the region, the West has determined that Iran should not have a peaceful nuclear program. Iran simply will not accept that. Nuclear energy for Iran is important. Iran right now produces electricity. Iran produces medicine. It uses nuclear energy in different fields. And it wants to be able to make sure that it can produce its own enriched uranium in case supplies are cut off at some point. We're a country where the United States imposes maximum pressure sanctions. So Iran wants to be doesn't want to be vulnerable. It wants to be as well protected as possible. But then, of course, there is the other issue, and that is Iran is a threshold state. And that is, I think, linked to the fact that the Israeli regime has nuclear weapons, and the United States has threatened Iran with nuclear weapons before. Hillary Clinton once threatened Iran with nuclear weapons. And the Israeli regime, just during the genocide, one of their government ministers threatened Gaza with a nuclear weapon. So when you have such sinister actors, meaning the regime in Washington and the regime in Tel Aviv, the Iranians obviously will want to keep an eye on their national. They want to be very careful about their national security. And so, an advisor to the leader, Dr. Kharazi, said, I think 3 times maybe over the last year or so, or year and a half or so, that if there is an imminent or threat to Iran's existence, or an existential threat to Iran, something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Then Iran will reconsider its nuclear posture. And Iran's nuclear program is very developed. It's one of the top 10 most developed nuclear programs in the world. Iran's missile defense capabilities, Iran's missile capabilities in general are among the best in the world. So the Iranians they're not foolish. They know that when the United States is threatening the country and the future of the country, the very existence of the country, or the Israelis are doing the same. Remember, these are genocidal regimes that wipe out nations. I don't know if you saw the exchanges in the Signal group where Vice President Vance, when he was told that a civilian building collapsed, killing everyone inside, he said, great, something like that in Yemen. The interesting thing, of course, is that they didn't kill any of the top leaders, contrary to what they thought they did or they claimed that they did. None of the senior military or political figures of Ansarullah and the Yemeni government have been killed or martyred in these airstrikes, contrary to what the Americans are saying. But they destroy a civilian building, murdering everyone inside, and then they celebrate. These are the sinister monsters that Iran is dealing with. So obviously, while Iran's nuclear program is peaceful, but the Iranians are very careful about the intentions, the actions, and the behavior of Washington and Tel Aviv.
Well, let me just start by saying that I disagree with your premise altogether. I mean, first of all, I'm 100% against nuclear weapons. I'm a big nuclear zero guy. I'm a nuclear arms control guy. I actually got rid of nuclear weapons back in the day. So what I'm about to say is not reflective of how I would like the world to be, but as the world is. And I will have a hard time standing by. I don't blame you on this, but are you telling me right now that India doesn't have a nuclear preemption of attack plan option out for Pakistan? That
India
if they,
doesn't have a first strike doctrine.
you're
India
telling
and
me
China.
that Pakistan was loading up nuclear weapons and saying that they're going to fire them against India, that India will absorb Pakistan's attack without carrying out any preemption?
Um, I don't know that, but
Right, you don't
India
know that.
maintains.
I
Yeah.
will tell you right now that India has a preemptive strike. You don't have nuclear weapons. You don't have the weapon systems that India has. Um, and Pakistan has a first strike policy too. It's not declared, it's not announced, but if Pakistan saw India putting its nuclear forces on full alert, making preparations, the intelligence where India is going to launch tomorrow, that
But but
Pakistan.
but Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. That's the difference.
Just a second. You're getting ahead of myself.
Okay.
Ahead.
That's
Okay,
what
don't do
the
that.
intelligence committee in the Senate suggested recently.
No, they didn't suggest. I'll tell you exactly what they said because I know what they said. I'm intimately familiar with this problem. All right. But I'm just starting off with the notion that if the United States did something, the whole world would be against it. There would be backlash, but not as much as you think. And now I'm going to tell you why. Because Iran is not allowed to have nuclear weapons. Now you're going to say, but Scott, didn't the National Threat Assessment recently briefed by Tulsi Gabbard's Department or Director of National Intelligence to the United States Senate make this case? What they said is this: that there is no evidence that Iran is assembling a nuclear weapon or pursuing the assembly of a nuclear weapon. And there's no evidence that the Iranian leadership has given orders for such a weapon to be assembled. Do we concur that's what they said?
Yes.
Okay. So now I've been saying that forever. I agree with that statement. I think everybody, the Iranians agree with that statement. But that's not the issue. Let's get back to why the JCPOA was negotiated. Okay, before we get into the whole viability of the JCPOA. The purpose of the JCPOA was to create a 1 year breakout window so that if Iran decided to violate the terms of the JCPOA and kick out inspectors, that the international community would have 1 year to respond before Iran could build a nuclear weapon. That 1 year was deemed to be the acceptable window. I just want to remind everybody because they go, we go back to the JCPO, go back to the JCPO. 1 year window, guys, breakout window, 1 year. Iran today is literally 1 week. 1 week. That is unacceptable. Now, if Iran could articulate that that 1 week was simply because they're pursuing peaceful nuclear energy and, the JCPOA allowed for the expiration of sunset clauses that would give Iran the opportunity to put in very thorough, capable centrifuges as opposed to the old IR-1s and 2s, which are very inefficient, high efficiency centrifuges that could produce lots of uranium enriched to 3.5%, by the way, 3.5% for use and conversion to fuel rods, which would go into the expansive Iranian nuclear energy program manifested by reactors built all over the country. You can say, okay, I get it. Now, you can make an argument that Iran needs a minimal amount of 20% enriched uranium because they have the Tehran research reactor, and the United States and others have made it impossible for Iran to get that. So you say, okay, produce enough 20% enriched uranium so that you can produce the fuel plates necessary to operate that reactor. But that's like a one centrifuge cascade operation that only has to operate for a limited period of time and then never operate again for many, many years because you don't need that much 20% uranium. Do you need the ability to convert uranium hexafluoride into uranium metal? Yes, I just said you need the metal plates to be produced. So you have a limited capability to do that. What need does Iran have for 60% enriched uranium? And there's none. And yet Iran has gone down the road of producing sufficient 60% enriched uranium, which is literally one step away from becoming weapons grade. One step away, being fed into a cascade that has been purpose-built in the underground facility in Firdo. So you jam that in there, you now get your 90+% enriched uranium that you turn into uranium metal, and then you have a cheap gun design that can be loaded onto any missile you want. And that gun design, it's a theoretical now, but it's there. But so you see what I'm saying? The Iranian program as it currently exists is a weapons preparation program. There's no other way to describe it. No other way to describe it. Why does Iran have 60% enriched uranium? There's no other reason to describe it. Now, that still comports with what the Senate said. There's no evidence that Iran is seeking to create a weapon, and the political leadership continues to say they don't want to have this. They haven't given the political green light. But now let's complicate it further. Because yes, those two statements are true. But then why did the former head of the Iranian nuclear program, the military side, say that Iran could build a weapon very easily? And it was backed by similar statements made by senior civilians. These are statements made last year, February, March, April, May. Why did the Iranian parliament say that we have to put together a committee to go to the supreme leader to get him to reverse the fatwa so that we can do it? And why did the Expedience Discernment Council, one of the senior advisory bodies to the supreme leader, talk about the religious conditions that would have to be met in order to reverse the fatwa, and that those religious conditions have been met? So let's go and reverse engineer now the intelligence program that's been the intelligence that's been given to the United States Senate. Yes, the Iranian leader has not made a decision. But according to the Iranians themselves, that decision can take place at any time, and the preparatory work has already occurred. That all that has to happen is the supreme leader wakes up one morning and goes, go. Now we go to the next issue. They haven't assembled a bomb, etc. The gun design is one of the easiest designs out there. It's not a difficult design. All you need is the fissile material. It's literally a certain amount of uranium metal, a slug taken out, a tube, high explosive, jam it in, and you go critical and it blows up. And it can be loaded onto delivery systems of not great sophistication. I would say that some of the warheads that Iran's using today, that they have used against Israel, have more sophistication in terms of the potential of acceleration and heat to disrupt their operation than the gun design, meaning that you don't even have to test this. And the Iranians have said, we are there. When I have an Iranian general tell me we have assembled all the components necessary except the fissile material, I believe him. Now, they haven't assembled it, but it can happen literally within the space of a week. By the time they finish enriching the 60% uranium hexafluoride into the weapons grade and they convert that to metal, they will have functioning weapons ready to be loaded up with uranium slugs, loaded on the missiles, deployed. That's a nuclear weapons capability, potential that Iran claims it doesn't want to pursue, but they are there. And if you're the United States of America, whose close ally is Israel, this is an existential threat to the existence of Israel. Now, we can sit here and play all the game. Well, the United States shouldn't support Israel. Maybe not. Israel's an evil Zionist entity. I agree. But it doesn't matter what you and I think. It doesn't matter what we tweet, the morally righteous positions that we throw in to the digital universe to have an echo chamber, and everybody loves us because we're saying the right things. The reality is Iran has a nuclear weapons potential, admitted by Iran that represents an existential threat to the existence of a close American ally, whether we want them to be close or not. And the Trump administration, which has stacked itself with more Zionists per square inch than any other administration, is going to defend Israel. And now that we've defined it as a nuclear threat, because it is a nuclear threat, you can't describe it as anything other than a nuclear threat. Then the United States has the exact same preemptive strike plans that India has for Pakistan, Pakistan has for India, and anybody has in the world today when it comes to nuclear weapons. But we've been honest about it. You see, we actually have put forward nuclear postures for many decades now that say that we can use nuclear weapons preemptively in a WMD environment and a non-WMD environment. And we've taken this posture and we've actually turned it into employment plans. You know who did that? Donald Trump. Donald Trump actually built an employment plan to launch preemptive nuclear strike against Iran. We built weapons especially for this purpose. Now, you'll say, well, but isn't that extreme? Again, look at sometimes people need to be careful what they brag about. Because apparently B-2 bombers flew over Yemen and dropped these massive bombs against, underground facilities. And everybody's going, they didn't work. They collapsed the entrance, but the facility lives, and the Yemeni came in through another one. Your big bombs didn't work. This is exactly why Donald Trump has made low yield, ground penetrating nuclear weapons that do work. So when people say, why would the United States use nuclear weapons preemptively? I just told you, because the conventional weapons can't do it. They can't do it. And if we're going to say we're going to take out the Iranian nuclear capability, then we will take it out using the weapons that are designed for that purpose. And then the other thing people need to understand is that people are used to pointing a finger at America going, well, you can't really win wars anymore, can you? Because, gosh, you go in and you bomb people and then it's done. I want to remind people that we're not waging a war of national termination against Yemen. It's a very limited attack against very limited targets. You want to look at what a war of national termination looks like. Look at the strategic air campaign that we launched against Iraq in Desert Storm. Sustained, and I was one of the planners for that, so I'll just tell you, it was designed to collapse the Iraqi society. That's what it was designed to do. The weapons we have today are much better. We have a lot more of them. So we can collapse societies much quicker. And if Iran thinks that the initial attack against it is going to be a very limited strike, they're wrong. If the decision's made to take out Iran's nuclear infrastructure, then we will also take out the political component of that nuclear program, the weaponization aspect of it, which is a regime we believe is prepared to either issue the order or has already issued the order to create nuclear weapons. This will be a regime change operation. It will be horrible to behold. It will end Iran as we know it. Now, Iran may, again, the Twitter spheres they've got 5,000 missiles, none of which can hit the United States. We can destroy Israel. Possibly. I can see that. Secretly, I'm not unhappy with that, but I can't really say that. I'm not here to defend Israel. Whether Iran can destroy Israel or not is beyond the point. Whether they can destroy a handful of American military bases is beyond the point. Because if it gets to the point where Iran does this or attempts to do this, Iran will no longer exist. And that's what I'm trying to stop. I'm trying to stop the termination of a nation. And it's very difficult because there's a lot of Iranians out there who have a lot of pride, as they should. And they should be heavily insulted by the policy positions the United States of America has taken, as they should. Is it fair for America to make the demands that it's making? No, it's not fair at all. Not fair at all. Iran is on the right side of history, with one exception. You're building a nuclear weapons program, and you're trying to pretend you're not. You're getting too cute. You're saying we don't have one, but secretly we could. But it's no longer secretly because your officials said we could. You've crossed the line. And there's no defending that. Not at all. It's indefensible. Why? Because Iran signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iran agreed to safeguards and inspections. Iran agreed that it will not be a nuclear weapons state. These are all things Iran agreed to. And Iran currently is a member of the NPT. Iran claims it's adhering to the NPT. So far, it appears that it has, because even the things that we've spoken about, minus maybe the secret preparation of a nuclear weapon, 60% uranium. It's not against the law. Article 4 of the NPT allows Iran to have total control of the nuclear cycle, and 60% uranium is still considered to be low enriched uranium. You can't make a weapon out of it. It's not weapons grade. So, Iran has all this going for it, except why did they allow their people to say these stupid things? These are confessions. These are confessions made by very senior people, by policymakers, by decision makers, by members of the Iranian government. And it is condemned Iran because now the United States has every justification under international law to take a hardline stance against the Iranian nuclear program. And that's where I stand on this.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have two requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.